Hello and welcome to Kiwi Babble. There's a million and one books on leadership and a lot of talk about the people first approach and the concept of servant leadership, maybe. There's thought leaders, endless posts about it on this platform, talking about empowering teams, driving cultural change, putting people first. But when deadlines loom and the stakes are high, it's tempting to default to a command and control, rowing back on a lot of those commitments. But that can leave teams feeling potentially confused, undervalued, losing trust. But the best tech leaders know that building a sustainable and high performing team is based on trust, empowerment, and empathy. But how does pressure affect that? The realities of real life and real world situations. That's what we're going to talk about this month. So, welcome to Kiwi Babble, the leadership path, people, pressure, and performance. We're going to talk about how servant leadership actually works. We're going to talk about how to empower engineers to own quality, because we are going to talk quite a lot about quality engineering, I'm sure. We're going to talk about how to build a culture of continuous improvement, not just burnout, and how to coach with empathy and remove blockers along the way. In order to have this conversation, we've got a great panel who are sharing their time today and their insights and experiences with us. So I want to bring them on now and say welcome to Greg, Helen, and Dilip. Hi there.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
Hello. Good to see you all.
Thank you for joining. So I want everyone, hopefully, who's watching along to, first of all, enjoy it, but ask questions, share insights, share your views, share your opinions. The panel and I would really appreciate if you put anything like that into the comment section, because we're going to be trying to flash those things up on the screen, come to questions later on in the session. So please do that as we go. Anything you think about would be really interesting to hear from you. So let's kick things off. Greg, I'll come to you first. So thanks again for agreeing to be part of today.
Not a problem. Glad to be here.
And we're talking about servant leadership and a people first approach. So in your opinion, how does that work in practice, that concept?
Yeah, so servant leadership, it's one of those buzzwords, isn't it? But in my head, it's a lot around the empathy and the listening to your team, not just having a bitch and a moan and listening to them, even though that does do well to get some stuff off the shoulders, but having that empathy and listening to them, because, you know, sometimes we're in tough situations, as you say, with tight deadlines, and it's good to empathise that, look, we're in this sticky situation. I'll get my hands dirty as well where I can, and show that we're in together. It's being that empathetic leader, listening to problems, solving where you can, and trying to take some of that load off them. We know as quality engineers, testers, even engineers, that we can waste a lot of time doing the boring stuff. Oh, the environment's down, things aren't ready, the test data's not ready. If I can go into the meetings and take that away from them, and empower them to do their jobs and move forward, and also look at the bigger picture. So in our leadership roles, we get to see the whole chessboard, and we can sort of game plan where their strengths are. And once you build up that rapport, you get to know your team a little bit more. I'm quite new into my role at the minute, so it's been that fun part of getting to know the team a lot better. But you can sort of see where people's strengths are and sort of trying to shepherd them and push them in the right directions to heighten these strengths, but also seeing where their weaknesses are and sort of coach them, egg them in the right direction as well, to look at them, self-reflect and come to that judgment themselves. You don't want to be going, you know, God, you're terrible at this, that, or the other. You want to be like going, look, you know, areas of improvement, and have that honesty as well. Sometimes it's how you say it as well. You don't want to be leaving it till their end of year review and saying, you know, you've been rubbish at this part of your job, why didn't you do better? You've got to preach these things as well, and that brings trust and trust over time as well. So getting them foundations right, and a lot of it is seeing that room for growth within your team as well, because people get stale, and it's looking for that next move for your team, how to keep them engaged, keep them happy, and also I see it as a bit of a stewardship as well. For it's sometimes hard, especially in quality where you've got embedded teams. You're not working with the team every day, and each team's working on different things. It's sometimes hard to keep that sort of org sort of mentality there, where they belong in the with the other quality engineers as well. They don't get siloed, they don't get missed. So it's making sure everyone's voice is heard and has equal time.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. I like what you said, obviously, about looking at areas of weakness, or as you say, areas for improvement. Because I think one of the parts of servant leadership is that you're invested in their career as well, and in order for anyone to progress, it's important to understand where they can improve. Obviously, praising where they're good, but also looking at the areas that they need to improve on, and focusing on those and being honest about it. And then you just touched on there something we'll come on to, which is potentially in the next question about empowering engineers and getting their voices heard. So thanks for that, Greg. Dilip, thanks for joining. You're a resident on QE Babel.
Thanks for having me. Adding to what Greg said, because he did such a good job. I'm pleased you mentioned trust there. So that's sort of the biggest thing that came to my mind. I think the key thing for me is it's when people say servant leadership, yes, it can be seen as sort of a buzzword, but it's actually putting that into practice, and as a leader, making sure that you're thinking about people, right? And I always use the term that it's a bit like how would you like to be treated yourself, and how do you like to be treated by your family or at home, for instance, and taking that in such a way that you see that work is an extension of sort of your personal life. So what's important for me is making sure that people are actually psychologically safe. And if something goes wrong, are we supporting people, or are we actually shouting at people and saying, you've done really bad here? So in certain situations, you can really show that you are that type of leader, and you are really helping people. And I always come back to ages ago. I remember I was setting up a new team with a DevSecOps sort of partner, and I remember someone said to me that they want stand-up desks, and we sort of parked everything and we said, you know what, we're really going to help people because health matters, and that's why we come to work. It's the first thing. Without your health, what have you got, right? And we invested so much to do that, and that was sort of, if I look back at why we were successful, I always pinpoint that time where we had standing desks and we had one person who wanted a bouncy ball to sit on because it had helped with posture. And those sort of things are things that we sometimes overlook, but yeah, it's important, right? It's making sure that we're collaborative. Coming back to what Greg said, it is about trust. And I think for me, it's making sure that the communication is two-way, such that it should be uncomfortable for us as a leader as well, right? If someone's got a problem, we should know what that problem is. And it shouldn't be the old sort of mentality, which was once a year you did a performance review and you filled it all in and you rushed to fill it in, and then you told someone, sorry, you're a 3 out of 5 and you're not getting a promotion. But conversations throughout the year were telling something completely different. So what's important for me is giving active feedback, even if that is uncomfortable, and helping people to be the best possible versions of themselves. And that's something that I've carried in every role that I've gone to. Sort of looking after QA, looking after engineering, looking after delivery people, looking after architects. And it's served me well. But a lot is helping people through, because that's the right thing to do.
Just when you're talking there about the stand-up desks and the ball to sit on, out of interest, you said it worked. Why do you think that worked? Do you think it was just because it showed that you were listening to the team and valuing what they said, or do you think it was purely down to the physical impact of them standing up to do their job, or a bit of both?
Good question. Bit of both is what I'd say, Matt. But I think I use that as an example that, you know what, I'm willing to listen.
Yeah.
You know what, I'm willing to go above and beyond. I've got all this other stuff, but that's super important, and I'm going to focus on it. So I think it is a bit of both. But what I would say is, you take those as opportunities that you can help someone. and you can set the way and you can set the example in a different frame. So it wasn't really output based to a customer, but essentially you're helping people, health comes first, and then it has a knock-on effect to output.
Okay, thank you. Hi Helen, I've got a black cat as well. I just noticed your
Yeah, Blackie wants to get in on the scene. He does like coming on camera. He says hello to all my colleagues when I'm having meetings. But yeah, wow, some really interesting points from both Greg and Dileep here. Where do I pick up from here? So I think, Dileep, when you said that you have to think about how you would want to be treated, I think that for me is my in for servant leadership. That is where it all started for me, when I was much earlier in my career and I had some not so good experiences with line managers, and I did end up feeling quite unappreciated, really quite unhappy in my job, and thinking I don't want to come into work tomorrow because I know what's going to happen. And actually, when I got into leadership roles to begin with, I was only in leadership roles with 1 or 2 people, wasn't line managing big teams, but actually there wasn't much training. And I was like, well, how do I do this? How do I line manage people? And I'm like, well, think back. How did I feel? I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to make my people feel like that. I want them to feel that I trust them, that I understand them, that I'm there for them, that I'm going to listen to them, that they can come to me and say, hey, I've got a problem, or something went wrong in stand-up today. I'm not happy with how this person was speaking to me. And we can talk about it and we can go, do we want to action this or do we not? This could be a safe space, psychologically safe space. You can tell me anything you want and I can action that if you want me to, or I could go, right, yep, we part that, we make a note of that. You've got it off your chest, draw a line under it, we move on. So I think that's definitely something there. And in my latest role, obviously I've got a bigger team, and it's learning what makes them tick. What do they enjoy? What do they not enjoy? Where are their strengths? Obviously, Greg was talking about, understanding what skills they've got that are really strong and making sure that they're able to utilize them really well. And I think that is a great thing, because you want people to feel empowered, but you also want them to feel energized. And when they're doing things that they know they're good at, that they enjoy, and they're able to display those strengths and utilize them and help the team to be even stronger by using those skills, that makes everybody happy. So I think that is definitely a big part of it. And it's putting their needs first, the team's needs first, taking out blockers, enabling them to succeed, and knowing that, they're being supported by you. And obviously chips are down, you're like, okay, we've got to get this release out, we've got to finish this testing. It's very tempting to go, well, I'm just going to tell you what to do. But actually, for me, I get my guys together and I go, right, this is the issue we've got. This is the deadline we've got. Help me to understand how you think we can best cover this off. How can we get best testing coverage that we can based on the knowledge we've got, the amount of time we've got, the tests we've got, the automation we've got. You tell me what's the best way of approaching this, and together they can work on it and collaborate. And I think collaboration as a group brings you so much strength, and you really come out on top feeling positive that not only have we achieved this, but we've achieved it together. We're all in this together. And I think that's what I like to get out of servant leadership.
Okay, thank you. Some good contributions there, and it's really good to see a lot of people who are watching asking questions and sharing some insights as well. So keep those coming, because we're going to get to those and really value the contribution. So we're talking about the concept, which really wanted to do, because we wanted to kind of frame what we were discussing. But I want to try and now drip in those kind of real life situations that I'm sure you encounter as leaders yourselves, around pressure and around deadlines. So if we talk about the next question, which is what it takes to empower engineers to own quality or own their own process, whatever that might be. Let's say scenario is that you're sitting in a meeting with your leadership team that your team aren't privy to, and the pressure's on. You've got to get a release out. Your seniors don't care how it's done; it just needs to happen. So you walk out of that meeting, feeling the pressure yourself. How are you going back to your team to translate that in a way that makes them still perform to a high level and still value you and your leadership style? It's probably quite a tough question. Dilip, can I start with you on that one?
Yeah, of course. So it's front and center right now because I've started a new role and I'm sort of just over a month into the role. I think what's important to me is firstly supporting the team and understanding where they are firstly, and sort of not just making assumptions. And that's really important because a lot of the time when you've got a senior leadership team who are saying we need this by this date, do they actually have the data? And are you actually explaining things to them in such a way that they understand it, right? So are you taking those technical aspects and speaking to those in such a way that they're non-technical? So I think what's really important firstly is to talk through where the team is. And what's the best way of normally doing that? Normally it's data, in my view, and using data in such a way that you can take people on that journey curve. So if I think of, for instance, engineering teams, I'd be looking at things like cycle time, throughput. I'd be looking at things that I can extract from the tools that I've got. So how many escape defects are we seeing? Of the incidents that we have, how are we learning? What can we do? So I think establishing data is really useful. At the same time, it's important to actually get involved in things like incidents. So actually be on the ground, see how things are working. Don't just make assumptions. Gathering that data then, it makes quality more visible at a higher level. But also you're giving that data to your engineering managers or your heads of engineering. Essentially what you're doing is you're saying that as a team, we've got a challenge here. Quality matters to us. We've got customer data also. Customers are saying that this doesn't work from a product perspective, or we've released this, but this is broke. So having that product engineering and QA sort of triangle that you've probably heard of before, getting everyone aligned to a vision is really important. And then in terms of ownership of engineering, I would definitely say having clear career progression frameworks such that everybody's got quality put into their career progression framework so that they actually feel accountable. They actually care about it. Actually get engineers to run the automation. See the automation as a product in itself. So would an engineer be happy if they created that automation themselves? Are we following the same sort of life cycle that an engineer would follow for a product? We should be doing the same for automation as well. And I think doing things like that and actually sharing what the role looks like. In a past role, we also did job shares, whereby an engineer would do a QA role, an automation person would do an engineer's role. So actually making sure that the career families are put together in such a way that the competencies are the same, but the role specific aspects are different, and people can move between roles. And that worked really well in terms of understanding each other. And one key one for me is always making sure that technical debt is understood, because an engineer does not want to cut code in an area where there's loads of technical debt, but a QA person wants to drive down that technical debt also because they want customers to be happy. So there is a commonality there. It's just making sure that you can talk to that commonality. So in my role at the moment, I look after QA, engineering, and architecture. By using that data, I've got commonality and I've got something that I can take the team on a journey piece.
When you said about getting everyone aligned to a vision, again, it's, I'm sure that a lot of people who work in any kind of leadership role would agree that having a vision is really, really important. But I suppose, like a lot of concepts, it can be seen as a bit of a utopia to have this vision, that have a vision day or vision sessions, and okay, so we've got that. But then again, sort of going back to a real world situation. So we've got our vision. This is how we said we were going to do things, but you've got to get something done. So do you have situations when you have to stray from that? And if so, how does that affect the team?
So I'd say that there are times where you have to just get that delivery out, right? You've got a customer who's waiting for something, revenue may be impacted, and you just need to get that out. But I think what's important from a team perspective is they're clear on, this is where we are now, this is not where we're always going to be, and you will have the time at this stage, a bit like a product roadmap. It's a bit like me saying, I want this bug fixed. If it's clear on the roadmap where it's coming, at least it gives me a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
So I think what's important from a vision perspective is we're honest in terms of where we are now in the short term. We give people a view in terms of where we want to get to. And very similar to what Helen said before, given that as a problem to the team, QA, engineers, architecture, everyone should have that similar mindset that how can we solve that problem as a team and how can we get there? So not so much a leader saying this is what you need to do, which is not servant leadership. Essentially, it's a team giving the team a problem and the team taking that problem such that they're eager to actually try and solve it together.
Okay, thanks, Dilip.
Thank you.
Helen, your views on empowerment?
Yeah, this is an important one, because people need to feel empowered to do their jobs. You come back from that meeting and you say, well, senior management tell us we've got to do it in this time frame and there's nothing we can do. Boom, here's our plan, this is what you're going to do for the next 2 days. Yeah, completely decentralized already, because it's like, oh great, okay, so senior management has said this. Obviously there's an end customer in mind at all times, whether that's internal or external, and it's how we look at that request. And I think it's asking them about how we can solve that problem, and asking them, what are the risks? Because yes, senior management have said that this release has to go out at the end of the week and it's non-negotiable, but it's my responsibility and it's the team's responsibility to say, well, we'll do the best we can, but there are these risks that are involved that may come up, because we're not going to be able to have full coverage of our testing. We are going to be risk-based testing. We are going to be selecting different areas to pick up on rather than testing everything. So it is about having that discussion and collaboration with them and helping them to feel that they are responsible for the end delivery, and saying, we've been able to flag up everything that we think may be a risk. Senior management can always say, yeah, not interested in that, happy to sign off on that risk, we're going to go live on Friday, come hell or high water. But we've highlighted all those risks, we've explained what potentially might happen. If they decide to take that risk, then that's up to them. But definitely it's something where everybody needs to have that they've felt that they've had that say in that. They've been able to put their voice forward, that they've been heard, and that I myself or whoever is the leader has collated that, has put that together in a plan with all the things that they've suggested that we're going to do, and say, hey, senior manager, you said that this needs to go out at the end of the week. This is what we're going to be covering. These are the risks that we're highlighting. This is what might happen. And this is the cost or the loss of income that we might have if this risk does actually come up. Are you still okay to go live with that? If you are, we'll get cracking. We've got our plan. We've all agreed on it. We've committed that, yeah, we believe that we can achieve this much. And these are the things that won't be covered.
And someone asked a question which you've actually pretty much just answered. How can organisations navigate the tension between short-term shareholder profit maximisation, getting things done, and a more holistic, sustainable vision of leadership, one that recognises value beyond just the bottom line? You've just spoken there about does everyone understand the risk, talking and communicating with the team about that and with the leadership. A difficult challenge, obviously, but you're
Yes.
sort of saying, I think, that you've got to try and take everyone on that journey together so they understand, what the end result of something will be or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone needs to be on the journey. Everybody needs to feel that they've been able to put their voice forward, that they have contributed to the overall plan. And yes, senior management have to understand that they are putting their money where their mouth is, and that there may be the risk that something will go wrong, that customers will not get the normal experience, that they may lose customers, that, you know, money that they would expecting to come in may not come in. There's all sorts of things that could go wrong, and definitely there is that fine balance. Obviously, shareholders, they're looking for their profit at every opportunity, but the business needs to have that trust in the marketplace. And again, like any kind of trust, if you lose it, it's difficult to get back.
Okay, thank you. Greg, sorry, a bit of a long wait for you there.
That's fine.
I'm sure you've been listening intently.
It gives me time to think. It's fine. Going last is fine with me.
So we're still talking about empowerment, empowering engineers.
Yeah. So we've all been there in previous roles where we've had peak hours where a lot of stuff's coming through and stuff's got to get done. At the end of the day, the business has got to keep on trading, keeping their customers happy. And yeah, sometimes you are put in that awkward situation. Now, for me, I try to be as transparent as can be with the team. Talk to them, but say, how are we going to deal with this? What do you need to get this done? And have open, frank conversations. Again, that empathy thing. Listen to the bitching, moaning. It's fine. Give them that room to vent. Now, we should have the procedures to protect us from going too far off the beaten path with these quality gates and everything. But again, take the people who are on that journey as well to present the evidence. They've got it. They're doing the work. Let them present. They'll have a much better idea than me what the intricacies are and the risks and what they've found. So support them, be there in the meetings, be everywhere with them. If they're not comfortable presenting, present for them, but take them along with it so they can see the fruits of their labour, and also celebrates when there's a retrospective, when there's a, hey, let's sit back, the pressure's off a little bit, we can celebrate those wins and call out the team when they've done a good job. You know, it's very easy for upper management to moan when things go wrong. They need to hear about it when, you know, the team knocked it out of the park. More often than not, when you're honest and say, look, we're up against it, most people will rise to that challenge. And if you build up that credibility, that goodwill with your team of being open and honest, they know that, hey, look, he's not pulling the wool over our eyes. We're in a sticky situation. We all want the company to win. We should all pull in the same direction. And the main thing is to get that visibility throughout in the company that, hey, look, these quality engineers have worked damn hard to get what you need out. We should celebrate this and make sure that goes all the way up and ripples out.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to talk about a culture of continuous improvement. So we're talking about helping engineers to develop their careers. But again, we're going to kind of focus on, in those pressure situations, fast-paced environments, how are we making sure that these people don't burn out, that they're feeling like they're always moving forward with their careers, even when they're, just focused on hitting deadline after deadline. Helen, can I start with you there?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting one because obviously we all want to learn and to grow in our roles, but we also have some very tight deadlines, lots of work to get through, probably in most cases not enough people for the work that we have. There's an environment now that the economy is not in the place that we were in a few years ago, so you haven't got enough people to do the job, so you're having to do more and more, and yet you're going, well, I'm not learning anything, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. But as a leader, I think Greg picked up on this in the first part, it's all about understanding your individual direct reports, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, what makes them tick, what they enjoy, what would be a bit of a stretch. And you look at the pieces of work you've got and you go, okay, that needs to be done in a really short time span. Who have I got? Who's going to be best placed to do that? And, that will really build on their skill set, or it will stretch them. If it's somebody they're like, well, you haven't done this before, but you said you really want to learn in this area, I'm going to put you on this project, but I'm also going to have you having a mentor for that project. So they won't do it for you, they won't tell exactly how to do it, but they will talk you through, and you can ask questions about, well, how do I do this, how do I do that? And we work together to make sure that we can balance learning against making sure that our goals are still delivered, because obviously at the end of the day we need to deliver the pieces of work, but you do need to make sure that people get those opportunities, because what is it, the stats, learning, only 10 or 20% of learning actually comes from going on courses and reading books and stuff like that. 80% of it comes from on the job learning. So especially when you've got a bigger team, you've got more flexibility to actually enable people to go, well, actually, I want to learn more about this. We've got a piece of work coming up. Okay, let's pair you with somebody that knows a lot more about that, and you can learn whilst doing that piece of work. So that's how I like to empower them to learn as we're still getting things out the door.
Okay, thank you, Dilly.
Really good point from Helen. So what I definitely say is having that right mindset at the top, and Helen, you sort of spoke to that already. I think what's important is embedding learning and growth, sort of in the work that people do. So in your sprints, making sure that there is a mindset of people learning and growing, and also experimentation. And I think that's really important as well. It's actually allowing people to experiment, try things out. Things may not work. Essentially helping people when things don't work out, and actually saying, well done on actually trying. I also mentioned it before. I think what's also important is that feedback culture. It's actually making sure that when you give feedback, it's not a surprise. I think Greg actually touched on this in one of your answers before, where you said not leaving things and actually giving that feedback when it happens, because people forget, right? And making sure that you're actually trying to help people through. So I think for me, it's making sure that as a leader, you're setting the right behaviors and you're actually continually improving yourself. So working with your manager and actually saying, I want to work in this way, making sure that you're improving, making sure that you're open to feedback, making sure you're saying to people, what can I do better? I'm quick to give you feedback, but what score would you give me out of 5, and what can I do better? And that should be two ways. So yeah, Helen did a great job. So yeah, I've probably repeated a few things that she already said, but yeah.
The feedback culture thing's interesting, and I see what you're saying, that you've got to, or Greg mentioned, wasn't it, that you've got to get into the habit of feeding back regularly, because if you don't and you only feedback when there's an issue, then you're going to probably lose someone quite quickly. If you haven't communicated with them for a few weeks or a couple of months with any kind of feedback, and then you go to them because there's a problem, you've got to be, obviously dripping in the sort of positive feedback,
yes,
and those areas of improvement as well to bring people along on the journey. Thanks for that, Greg. Do you want to touch on this one?
Yeah. So you touched on retention and everything, and normally within the team you have a mixture of expertise, middle, and more junior people who are coming up in the role. And when you're learning new things, there's that S-curve of when you're starting, it's all exciting, you're learning all the new stuff. Then you go into that dip of it's the everyday, you're in there, and then the mastery. And it's empowering people when they reach that mastery. Train someone else, empower other people. So it's not just all on you. And it builds that trust and team building, especially when we're in teams that don't always talk to each other every day, don't work with each other every day. To have that mentorship from another engineer as well is really important. But also seeing when people are stuck in that rut, because that's when you lose people. You lose that domain knowledge when they're doing the same thing day in, day out. Even if it's put them on a course for an hour a week. Here you go, train up to do this, and we'll look at things there. There's always room for opportunities, and if need be, you can always find that. But of course, we're in a busy world, tight deadlines, as we said, and the world's not a fluffy place where we've got overly headcount. So it's, again, not over promising. Having that transparency when you're having that talk of like, look, this is where we'd like to get to you, and I know that you're interested in this. We'll be looking to do that in the new year when we've got some like more training funds available. Don't promise it immediately, because if you make promises and you break them, that's that instant contract breakage, right? And it's hard to pull that back. So set expectations, right? Also, when you do these things, make sure to follow through. Bring it up if there are reasons it's delayed a little bit, but emphasize it's still going to happen. And see that progression as well. And I think Dilip brought it out earlier, where you got clear career paths as well, where, you know, we're really lucky to be an engineer, and you could go down the performance testing route, which is really interesting to some people. Some people want to do data analysis, data testing, security testing. There's loads of routes to go down there. And to develop that in-house as well, rather than just always hiring in the experts, is really powerful. So if they can go, oh, so-and-so over here used to be in this team, now look at him, they're over there doing security testing. Oh, look, in this company, you can learn new things, you can progress. One way to sort of stifle that sort of view is just bringing the experts. Oh, just hire a third party, get that done while it's going. Or maybe if you do need to do it and you've got a short impact where you need a third party, bring in one of our own to shadow them, learn, so we keep that knowledge in-house. But also, it gives them that taste, like you said, Helen, Dilip. You know, they get the taste of trying this stuff as well. So it's always keeping that eye out for opportunities for the team as well. Because like I said earlier, we've got the view of the whole chessboard. You can sort of go, oh, I can see this is coming down the road. Maybe that's something so-and-so is interested in. Otherwise, you run the risk of just people wallowing, and either they'll switch off or they'll leave.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Someone's asked a question here, which I'm going to bring in because we're kind of at this point. Also, it hasn't been mentioned yet, but we've individually spoke before we started that you're all each of you fairly new into your most recent jobs. So I'm sure that, you know, the subject of leadership and leadership style is something that you're very conscious of at the moment. So again, thanks for agreeing to do it at a busy time. But someone's asked a question here, which is probably quite pertinent for you, given where you're at the moment. Andrew said, what ways would you build an environment to help with well-being and helping colleagues to reach their potential and develop? So if we focus on that word build or implement, Dilip, can I ask you, how do you go about bringing something like this in?
So really good question from Andrew. What I would say is it's a bit like when you're first doing something, you have to be all ears, and you have to go in sort of in the discovery phase to not add your own bias, because when you've moved from one company to another, it's never the same, right? You've got a different approach, you've got a different vision, you've got a different team. They've been through different things. So I definitely say, in terms of caring about well-being and helping colleagues, the first thing you want to do is be all ears. So what was important for me was meeting the wider team, having an open door policy, saying to people, if you were in my shoes, what one thing would you change if you were me? How happy are you out of 5? So between 1 and 5, how happy are you? And as a new leader here, what can I do to help you get to a 5? So actually listening to people, understanding where people are coming from is super important, rather than just coming in saying, I'm going to make all these changes, and then see what can the quick wins be. Can we focus on team building? How can we help people with well-being? Are we making time for people to actually reflect? Do we have too many meetings? So I think for me, it's taking that reflection point, it's gathering that data, and not pushing well-being and career progression and that sort of stuff to one side. It's important to understand, take the data, take a moment to reflect, but listen to people. And there's always some quick wins that you can do, right? And even taking that time to meet new teams, even taking that time to have a 5-minute call with someone in a different team. And I always say it's a bit like breaking that hierarchy such that you're one of the team. The team trusts you because you can't succeed without them. And I think that's an important mindset to have. So really good question.
Okay, let's move on to our last question that we've set, and then there's lots more that people have asked, which we'll come to as well. And the last point we had on here was how to go about coaching or leading with empathy. And again, if we try and focus on, we understand that leading with empathy is probably a good approach, but in a real world situation when the pressure's on, and potentially someone in the team is having a bad day or a difficult time, but frankly you need them to deliver because you've got something that has to be done. How do you go about balancing that? Because I imagine it's very, very difficult. Helen, can I ask you on that one first?
Yeah, it is a difficult one, and I think this is where the trust really comes in, because obviously you've got your ask, you've got your deadline, and you go to the team and you're talking about, right, okay, this is what we're going to be, this is the deadline that we've got, how are we going to achieve this? And as you're talking, you might be starting to think, well, Bob's not looking very happy. I'm seeing, or I'm getting some feedback in terms of either visual, if he's got his camera on, or the words he's saying, or his body language, or if he's just typing on the chat rather than on video. It's like, okay, I'm getting some feedback here that indicates there is a problem, and it's not potentially not just about the deadline. There's something going on. So it's something where you'll need to have a chat with Bob on his own afterwards, and you go, yeah, obviously, yeah, we're in a difficult position. Yeah, we don't want to be here. How are you today? What's going on? How are you feeling about this? Tell me. Like, even if it's like a one-word check-in, how do you feel about what we've just been discussing? And then hopefully through you being honest about how you feel about it from the beginning of the conversation, going, yeah, I don't like where we are. I don't want to be here. But yeah, we've been asked to get something done. We've got some risks. We've identified some of them. Hopefully they will share with you how they feel. And yeah, maybe they are having a bad day, or there's some personal problems going on in the background that mean that they're like, I could really do without this today. I can't concentrate on this because I've got something else going on that I really need. If it's family, personal, to me, family comes first. We're in a job. We do not have our jobs as our every 100% of our time. We do that in order to get money, to have a life, to look after our family, our friends. That is what is important. When you're on your deathbed, you're not going to say, oh, I wish I went to more meetings, or I wish I'd done more work. You're going to be, I wish I had more experiences. I wish I spent more time with this person. I wish I said XYZ to this person, that person, whatever. It's not going to be about the work. So if there's something else going on, hopefully you've already built that trust, and they're going to be able to say to you, I can't deal with this today. Fine. Yeah. Okay. What's your remit? What can you deal with today? Yeah. Maybe you can't deal with the really high priority, difficult test cases. Okay. Is there a set of test cases that you've run a lot of times, or there's an area that you know really well that you can cope with looking at today? Brilliant. Okay. You're going to cover that off. Fantastic. I then go back to the others and I go, right, okay, this bit is covered. What I need covering are these other areas. Who can cover those today? And it's like, yep, Bob's doing what he can. That's all he can do today. Yeah. The rest of us need to work out how we can cover the rest, because we are a team. We cover each other. We've got each other's backs. That's how I would hopefully look at that.
Yeah, I love it. I think you mentioned at the start about you being honest as well about the situation you're in, rather than saying, right, we've got to get this done because I've been told by so and so it's got to be done. It's like, I don't like this either. It's not the situation that we wanted to end up in, but the reality is that this is the objective of the business, and like it or not, we've both got to make sure it gets delivered. And then that second part there around so the person, you've identified that the person or people are unable to deliver this. What do they feel they can deliver during this time period, and where can that shortfall be made up elsewhere? I think it sounds like a really good way of approaching things. Greg, can I come to you on this around leading with empathy?
Yeah, Helen answered really well there. I think the key thing is that active listening. If someone's down, make sure they feel like they're being heard as well, right? You know, these situations do occur, and as managers you come across them. So, you know, make sure they feel heard and listened to. Take away as much of the problem as you can. You know, Helen's already touched on this, but make sure you spin around, make sure, you know, check in on them. Maybe they don't want to talk more that day, but make sure that you do to swing around, whether it's later that week or whenever it happens, and just, you know, keep that trust and everything there. You know, we are all people and everything. Things do get to us. And yeah, you know, if you can take some of the weight off their shoulders, I think that you're doing a good job.
Dilip?
I think a lot's already been covered by Helen and Greg, to be honest. So yeah, it's a hard one to really add. What I would say is just reiterating on that trust piece, and just being honest of what the situation is. I think what also helps sometimes is, as leaders, we can sort of we can keep that information that we've been told at the top hidden. But what I think is a really good idea is invite those senior stakeholders to meetings with the team and get them to see that we're all one team, right? So rather than actually forming that hierarchy and having separate meetings, get everyone together, get a shared vision, be honest and open to say, situation isn't easy, but this is the problem that we've got. Have we not thought of something else? Have we missed anything? Are there any other solutions that we've not come together as a team? So that's the main thing that I definitely add in. And also it's reiterating the fact that we win as a team together, or if it doesn't go well, we lose as a team, all of us. And I think that's an important mindset to have, because normally it's that failure mindset where people feel that this is being pushed onto me. I don't want to make a decision because I might get blamed, and then there's consequences on the back of that. I think it's important for everyone to have a shared, like share that risk together, and don't just put that risk on one person, which is really unfair.
You just touched on something there as well, which is a really interesting part of leadership and managing people, is you're having conversations with your bosses and the people above, and then you've got that whole question of how much of that information should you share with your team. You know, what elements of that is going to empower them to deliver better work, and potentially what parts of those truths might actually be a negative as well. And whether, I guess, you do that consciously or unconsciously, that must be a hard challenge at times.
It can be, but I think for me, it's if there's an impact and the team need to know, as a leader, I definitely say it's good to be open and honest.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're asking them to do something and you're saying, I need it done by this time frame, it's only fair that you share the why. Is it because a customer needs something? Is it because there's market conditions? Is it because there's a problem and we need to fix it so that we can keep this customer happy? So I think for me, it's important to have that honesty. If there is a confidence in what's being said that this may happen, then I don't think that really needs to be shared, because essentially you want to go to your team with the right amount of information such that it doesn't become noise.
Yeah.
So I think as a leader, it's important to protect your team, but also be in a position that you understand it from their position, but you also understand it from a leadership position also, right?
Thank you. Someone's made a good comment here, which I'm going to share. This is Paul Darby, who I've spoken to before. So thanks, Paul, for this contribution. He says, empowerment requires investment also. QEs cannot be truly empowered if the organisation is not working with an equality mindset in the first place. That sort of quality first approach. By this I mean allowing the time, the focus and the skills to drive quality, and to listen to what the journey communicates and learn from it. So I suppose you're saying there that, if we're talking about QE specifically, it can't just be siloed within one team, because potentially, the people who are in that team will realise that the rest of the business aren't invested in that concept. So they'll struggle to buy into it and feel empowered as well. And it needs to be a sort of whole company mentality. There's a good question here, which I'm going to ask. And again, I suppose, given you're relatively new into your jobs, it's probably fairly relevant. Sorry, bear with me. So this is Lee Rathbone. So thanks, Lee, for the question. Is there's any of the panel being the first leader in an organisation where they've adopted or used the servant leadership style? And if so, what challenges did they encounter to encourage other leaders to adopt that mentality or wear that hat? So I'm not necessarily asking you to talk about your current companies, of course, but just sort of more generally, how do you go about instilling your own leadership style on a new role? Greg?
Yeah. So from reading the question, going into a new place, especially a place that's established and already got their sort of ways of working, is always a bit daunting. And when you take over, adopt teams that, again, have been in place. I worked at one place where some people have been in the team for nearly 20 years, working on legacy products, and come in. It's a little bit hard, and it was a very top-down, we need this, you will jump, we say how high sort of place. And you're not going to change that overnight. And the best way by doing it was by showing the results. When things did get tough and everything, it wasn't me saying, you need to do this. It was like, oh, how did you get this many people on the call so easily? And it's because we've built that transparency, that trust. And like Dilip said, the whys, that transparency when you can. And then people are, oh, right, okay. And you just... instead of forcing on down people's neck, they through osmosis go, oh, okay, but that team seems, the churn rate in quality's gone down. People seem happy in their roles. So it's not through waving the flag, so to speak. It's letting the methods speak for themselves, and it does get noticed.
Yeah, that's a good point. You sort of imagine this scenario where someone sort of walks into a new job with waving their book around about servant leadership. This is how I lead. Yeah. But realizing that actually that's probably not the best way of doing things. You've got to understand what you're walking into. And Helen, anything you want to add on that one?
I think definitely Greg is right. You have to demonstrate the benefits of this type of leadership. You can't just go and go, right, well, I'm going to do this and you're all going to do it as well. It's like, it's the benefits that you get out of it. And I think, it's always been my leadership style, but it's actually never something that I've voiced in any way. It's something that I demonstrate in the way that I treat the team and how I set up the meetings and how I talk to them and how I give them space to talk about what they might want to talk about. It's never about saying, right, this is the kind of leader I am, even though I've been on the leadership courses and they give you questionnaires and you go, oh, you're that kind of leader. I'm like, oh, right, okay, that's fine. Yeah. But it comes from gut instinct. It doesn't come from having read the book and going, right, I'm going to follow everything in this like a little formula. It's come from how I want to be treated, as we talked about earlier, and how I think that, it would help other people if I did things in this way. So it's all more organic than actual following a leadership style book. So I think that definitely is how I go about it. And I think it is the evidence of these things, as Greg said. People go, hang on a minute, how have you got this many people, or how have you got this many examples of suggestions for improvements from your people? Literally, I had one-to-ones with each of my new staff, and I've done this in previous companies. One of the first questions is, what do you enjoy about your role? What are you frustrated about? Tell me what your frustrations are. What are the things that aren't going well? Because no company is perfect. And it's getting that out in the open and going, okay, so these are the things that I need to go away and start talking to people and understanding why they are as they are, and let's see if we can improve them for you.
Yeah. No, and you said something, I guess, fairly similar to Dilip, in that he mentioned that he did I think a rating of 1 to 5 on happiness.
Yeah.
Which again is, it's very honest, isn't it? Because I think it's showing that you're not scared of what the answer might be. You've asked about what frustrations they might have, and it's probably quite easy to, frankly, to not ask those questions, and even if you look at someone and you see they're unhappy, not ask why. But by asking why, I'm sure that it helps to sort of gain their trust and probably empower them as well to do a better job by being upfront and honest about whatever that situation might be. So Dilip, if you ask that question and you get a couple of people coming back with only 2s, then you know that there's something there that needs to be worked on and addressed.
Yeah, and also, I've been around long enough. I've had enough managers where you sort of pick up bits and pieces from them as well. You work under people yourself, and you go, "Oh, that's a good way of doing it. I'll take that forward." Oh my God, what are you doing? You've ruined my day by just having a 5-minute meeting. And you pick up these sort of little traits as well, don't you? So again, and you try and discard the bad and take forward the good.
That's it, good and bad, right? And I don't know about you, but I know, like, from looking back at when I first started, those first few leaders I had such a big impact on me, and I only really realised it a little bit later on how much they impacted me positively as it happened. But you realise how important good leadership is, definitely. There's been some other really good comments put in, so thank you to everyone who has contributed here. I'm just going to put a couple of them on here. So Christina, who's watching, said, well said, Helen. Looking into the person as an individual and understanding their motivation and personal situations that can affect work. Let's face it, we are humans, and love what you said about family comes first and not in the organisation, meaning taking care of the individuals and the team. That's what increases the motivation and team productivity. Because you look at job adverts, and she's maybe even alluded to that there. You see a lot of job adverts saying that we are a family as the company. Of course, they're not. They're not families. Like, there's only one family, and that's our own families, right? And those things outside of work are always going to be the most important. So, sort of addressing those things, really, really important. We are coming towards the end now. Actually, just a couple of minutes to go. I don't know whether the panels have got anything else they want to add before we shoot off. Dilip, I didn't give you a chance to answer that last question there about implementing servant leadership.
No, I think it was answered so well. I probably would have struggled to say anything else, but I've really enjoyed the session, and some really good questions, and thanks for the opportunity.
Pleasure. We've had some good, lots of good contributions from people, so hopefully everyone's enjoyed it. I'm going to write up what we've discussed, send it out to anyone who's watched, who's interested. That'll be available from Monday, and the video will be on YouTube as well for people to watch along. Again, that'll probably be from Monday. So thanks to Greg, Dilip, and Helen for their time today, for preparing for the event and for the hour they've spent with us. And thank you to everyone for your questions. QBab will be back in September, so watch out for notifications on that. If the panel can just stick around for 1 second, I'll end the stream here. So thanks everyone for watching. See you soon.